2 years ago, your neighbor cultivated their garden. Today, it appears abundant, vibrant, and as if it's been established for decades. Yours, though in the ground for 4 years, still seems partially vacant. This isn't a matter of misfortune or poor soil quality. It's about selecting the wrong flora. And today, that situation will be permanently rectified. I'm about to reveal 13 perennial plants that will fill your garden with speed, beauty, and unwavering reliability, ensuring you never again squander funds on annuals to patch bare spots. Plant number 7 propagates with such vigor that many gardeners suspect a problem. Furthermore, plant number 11 produces an abundance of new plants annually without requiring any manual seed handling. Let's delve in. Before we proceed, kindly leave a comment immediately to share this information. For how many years has your garden been established? And does it still appear sparse when you view it from outside? I meticulously read every comment received on this channel and am eager to see your responses. You might be astonished by the number of individuals currently viewing this video who are experiencing the very same predicament. Introducing plant number 1, the dilly. We begin here because no other perennial on this list offers a greater return for a lesser investment of time and resources. Specifically, varieties such as Stelloro, Happy Returns, and Pardon Me are the most dependable, forgiving, and prolific plants found in American perennial gardens. The reason they are commonly seen in front yards from Maine to Mississippi is simple. They consistently deliver results. Here's the specific method that makes dillies exceptional for filling garden spaces. They originate from thick, tuberous roots that continuously multiply beneath the soil throughout the entire growing season. Each cluster of leaves visible above ground is supported by a root system actively generating new clusters below. Not just 1 or 2 new clusters, but often 3, 4, or even 5 within a single growing season. A single dilly plant set out this spring will transform into a clump of 3 to 4 clusters by autumn. By the close of the following season, that same plant will have developed 8 to 12 clusters, sufficient to be divided into a dozen individual plants. Each division, when replanted anywhere in your garden, initiates the entire process anew. If you plant 3 dillies this spring, within 2 years, you will possess enough divisions to completely fill a 20-foot border without any further expenditure. Now, here's a common oversight that quietly diminishes garden blooms each year. Most individuals delay dividing their plants for too long. They allow the clump to grow for 5, 6, or even 7 years, perceiving its fullness and health as indicators not to disturb it. However, by the 5th year, the original root mass has become so densely intertwined that it begins to constrict itself. The roots at the center engage in fierce competition for water and nutrients. The outcome is a plant that appears lush, but produces 40 to 50% fewer blooms than it is capable of. It's crucial to divide at year 3, not year 5, and certainly not when the plant begins to appear crowded. Year 3 is the optimal time, while the roots still possess significant vigor throughout the entire clump. Divide either in early spring as new growth emerges or in early autumn, at least 6 weeks prior to the first expected frost. Employ a sharp spade to drive directly down through the center of the clump. Gently pull the sections apart by hand. Each separated section should possess at least 3 to 5 clusters. Replant them immediately, water thoroughly, and by the following summer, you will be unable to discern that they were ever divided. Stelladoro maintains a compact height of 12 inches, making it ideal for border edges and walkways. Its golden yellow blooms appear from late spring and continue uninterrupted until autumn. Happy Returns offers soft, lemon-yellow flowers, while Pardon Me provides a deep red, burgundy contrast. All three varieties are drought-tolerant once established, resist deer, and will thrive in full sun, partial shade, clay soil, sandy soil, and both wet and dry conditions. If a more forgiving perennial exists in American gardens, I have yet to discover it. One plant this spring can result in a fully flowering border by next summer. This is the Dilly promise, and it is consistently fulfilled. If you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, now is the perfect moment. Every week I publish videos precisely like this one. There's no extraneous content, no filler, just practical, specific, and regionally accurate gardening advice designed to save you time, reduce your expenses, and help you cultivate a garden that genuinely fills you with pride every time you step outside. Please hit that subscribe button immediately. It's entirely free, and you won't miss another video of this nature. Let's move on to plant number 2, catmint. Envision a soft, billowing mass of grayish-green, aromatic foliage, completely adorned with lavender-blue flower spikes that persist from late spring right through autumn. This isn't a fleeting 2-week display like a peony, nor a 6-week show like a coneflower. It's a continuous 5 to 6 months of color from a single plant that you establish once and never need to replace. Walker's Low is the most widely recognized variety. It forms a mound 18 to 24 inches tall and spreads 2 to 3 feet wide within a single season. Six Hills Giant reaches 3 feet in height and width, creating a striking focal point in any border. Catmint expands by growing outward from its crown in all directions simultaneously. A single plant placed in the ground this spring will achieve a width of 2 to 3 feet by autumn. By its second or third year, it will have developed into a dense, weed-suppressing expanse through which nothing can grow. Here's the oversight that deprives catmint growers of a second and even third flowering flush, a detail that the plant tag will never mention. Most individuals allow their catmint to bloom through its initial flush in late spring. Once the flowers begin to fade, they leave the plant untouched. What they fail to realize is that these spent flower stalks signal the plant to redirect its energy towards seed production, rather than generating new blossoms. If you prune catmint back by half, not all the way to the ground, but simply by half, immediately after the first flush fades in late June or early July, the plant will respond within 2 to 3 weeks with an entirely fresh burst of new flower spikes, carrying you through the summer and into the fall. Neglect this single pruning step, and you'll experience one good blooming period. Perform this single pruning, and you'll enjoy 3. This is the sole distinction between a competent catmint plant and a truly spectacular one. It is hardy from zones 3 through 8. In zones 3, 4, and 5, cut it back to 4 to 6 inches after the first hard frost. It will return in spring, exhibiting greater vigor than the previous year. In zones 6, 7, and 8, the foliage often persists through mild winters, providing ground cover during the off-season. It is completely resistant to deer and rabbits. Pollinators, especially bees, actively visit it from morning to evening throughout its blooming period. This is the longest blooming perennial on this list, a deer-resistant pollinator magnet that fills 2 to 3 feet of garden space in its very first season. Now let's discuss plant number 3, Coreopsis. Threadleaf Coreopsis varieties like Moonbeam, Zagreb, and Golden Gain possess incredibly fine, almost feathery foliage that imparts a soft, airy texture, creating a beautiful contrast against plants with bolder foliage. Above this delicate foliage, from June through September, without interruption, cheerful, daisy-like flowers in shades of butter yellow, golden yellow, and warm gold bloom continuously for 4 straight months, even without deadheading a single flower. However, the reason Coreopsis secures its place on this list isn't solely its blooms. It's what transpires beneath the soil while those flowers are in full display. Threadleaf Coreopsis spreads via underground rhizomes, horizontal stems that travel just beneath the soil surface, emerging as new plants several inches away from the parent. You won't witness this process happening. There are no visible runners above ground. Then, one day, you'll notice new Coreopsis plants in areas that were bare soil just 2 weeks prior. This is the rhizome system functioning precisely as it was designed to. In practical terms, a single plant can spread 2 feet or more within a single growing season. Within 2 seasons, one plant evolves into a dense, spreading colony that occupies a substantial area, effectively suppressing weeds beneath it, all while blooming continuously. Here's the primary pitfall that causes Coreopsis performance to decline faster than anything else, and this genuinely surprises many individuals. Rich soil is the nemesis of Coreopsis. If you regularly fertilize your garden beds and plant your Coreopsis in the same enriched soil, you are actively working against the plant. Coreopsis is a North American wildflower that originated in lean, impoverished, and often dry soil conditions. In rich, fertilized soil, it develops lush, floppy foliage and exhibits significantly reduced flowering. The plant dedicates all its energy to leaf production instead of blooms because the soil indicates an abundance of resources. Maintain Coreopsis in lean, average to poor soil, refrain from fertilization, ensure full sun exposure, at least 6 hours of direct sunlight daily, and then simply ignore it. That is when it performs at its absolute peak. Plant it once in poor soil, neglect it completely, and it will bloom for 4 uninterrupted months while discreetly filling your bare ground from below. Moving to plant number 4, creeping phlox. This is the plant I receive the most inquiries about, and when people finally plant it correctly in the ideal location, they invariably return to report that it has completely transformed their garden. Varieties such as emerald blue, candy stripe, and red wings of creeping phlox create a low, dense, evergreen carpet of fine textured foliage, rarely exceeding 4 to 6 inches in height, cascading across the ground, over wall edges, or down slopes. For 3 to 4 weeks in spring, this entire mat becomes completely obscured by an unbroken tapestry of flowers. These aren't scattered blooms. It's a solid, continuous sheet of color so dense that not a single leaf is visible beneath it. Emerald blue produces vivid blue-purple blossoms that appear almost electric in the morning light. Candy stripe features unique pink and white bicolor flowers, setting it apart in the spring garden. Red wings yields deep magenta-red blooms with a richness that photographs struggle to capture. Creeping phlox spreads by sending stems along the soil surface, rooting at every point where they make contact with the ground. A single plant can spread 2 feet or more within 1 to 2 seasons. After 3 to 4 seasons, a small starter plant evolves into a mat spanning several feet across. Here lies the error most people make, an error responsible for more underperforming plants than any other single factor. Individuals plant creeping phlox on flat ground, within level garden beds, surrounded by other flat-growing plants, leaving it with nowhere to expand but sideways. Creeping phlox, by its very nature, is designed to cascade. It thrives with a drop, a slope, the edge of a raised bed, a retaining wall, or a rock garden. Any environment that provides it with vertical movement in conjunction with horizontal spread. The moment you plant creeping phlox at the crest of even a gentle slope, the entire character of the plant transforms. It grows more rapidly, roots more aggressively, fills in more densely, and the bloom display becomes dramatically more impressive as the flowers cascade downward in a breathtaking waterfall of color. If your goal is to construct something truly beautiful and enduring in your garden, not merely to plant things and hope for the best, but to genuinely understand the function and purpose of your plants, then this channel was specifically created for you. Subscribe immediately and join thousands of gardeners across the United States who are cultivating smarter, more beautiful gardens each and every season. Hit that button. You belong here. Let's explore plant number 5, Black-Eyed Susan. If there is one plant on this list that embodies the most authentic American spirit, native to this soil, shaped by this climate, and built for this land, it is the Black-Eyed Susan. The Goldstorm variety, in particular, elevated a beloved wildflower into one of the most decorated and dependable perennials in the annals of American gardening history. What makes Black-Eyed Susans exceptional for filling garden spaces is a dual propagation mechanism unmatched by any other plant on this list. Most rapidly spreading perennials employ a single method, either underground rhizomes or above-ground seeds. Black-Eyed Susans utilize both. Rhizomes extend outward from the parent plant, establishing new clumps in surrounding soil, while the plant also self-seeds prolifically, scattering seeds that germinate around and beyond the parent, filling the gaps that the rhizomes have not yet reached. This results in double coverage from a single plant. Within 2 full growing seasons, 3 starter plants of Goldstorm will fill a border so completely that it appears professionally landscaped. After 5 years of establishment, the effect is even more pronounced. Here's the mistake that stems from good intentions and quietly deprives individuals of months of garden value each season. Every autumn, meticulous gardeners cut Black-Eyed Susans completely to the ground and clear away all the seed heads, seeking a neat appearance. In doing so, they inadvertently eliminate months of wildlife sustenance and discard the potential for next year's free plants simultaneously. Those seed heads provide nourishment for goldfinches, chickadees, nuthatches, and sparrows from October through February. If you aspire to attract more birds to your garden during winter, when food sources are scarce and birds genuinely require assistance, leaving the Black-Eyed Susan seed heads standing is one of the most effective actions you can take. Allow the seed heads to remain throughout the winter. Cut back to approximately 4 inches in early spring, just before new growth emerges from the base. This approach provides months of winter bird feeding, encourages natural self-seeding to populate surrounding areas with free new plants, and results in a tidy garden come spring. 3 distinct benefits arise from this single decision to set aside your pruning shears in October. Months of golden color gracing your garden, months of avian sustenance throughout winter, and the provision of free new plants each season without the need for personal seed planting. Are you a gardener who meticulously clears everything in the fall and maintains a tidy winter garden? Or do you leave seed heads and structural elements standing to benefit wildlife? Please share your answer in the comments right now. Include your zone as well. I'm keen to observe the practices within this community. Let's discuss plant number 6, lamb's ear. This is a plant capable of tripling in size within a single growing season, and I want to be precise about this statement, as I don't make exaggerated claims without substantiation. Lamb's ear varieties such as Helen von Stein and Silver Carpet possess leaves covered in dense, soft, silvery white hairs that evoke the feel of the finest fabric imaginable. Anyone who encounters lamb's ear in a garden reaches down to touch its leaves, irrespective of age. It elicits a tactile response unlike any other perennial. However, the reason it merits a place on this list is its remarkable spreading habit. Lamb's ear propagates by sending horizontal stems along the soil surface, rooting at every single point of contact throughout the entire growing season. A small starter plant from a 4-inch pot can readily expand to cover 2 to 3 feet of bare ground by the end of its first summer. In its second season, this coverage will double again. The claim of tripling in size within one season is not an exaggeration. For vigorous specimens under ideal conditions, it's actually a conservative estimate. As it spreads across your bare ground, it simultaneously forms a mat so dense and low that weeds simply cannot establish themselves beneath it. This isn't due to any chemical action, but purely through physical density that blocks the light necessary for weed seeds to germinate. Once lamb's ear establishes itself in an area, that area remains filled. You cease weeding it and begin to appreciate its presence. Here's the critical mistake that proves detrimental to lamb's ear, a situation where excessive care works directly against the plant. Overwatering and overmulching destroy lamb's ear more rapidly than anything else. This plant is native to arid, rocky, sun-baked hillsides in Turkey and southwestern Asia. Its entire biological makeup is adapted to drought, poor soil, and minimal moisture. When you water it regularly, akin to a hosta or hydrangea, you create conditions diametrically opposed to its evolutionary adaptations. The crown, the central growing point at soil level, is exposed. Maintaining consistent moisture at the crown leads to rot. This rot is swift and can devastate a significant portion of the plant. Pull back mulch from around lamb's ear. Cease irrigation once it is established, typically after its first season. Plant it in locations where water drains away from the crown rather than pooling around it. Implement these 3 measures, and lamb's ear will reward you with the fastest, most reliable ground coverage on this entire list. It is the most rapidly spreading, most weed-suppressing, and most visually distinctive ground cover available, thriving entirely on neglect. Let's introduce plant number 7, ajuga. This is the plant I mentioned at the outset, the one whose behavior most gardeners find perplexing when they first witness its spread. Once you fully comprehend its propagation method and optimal placement, you will view the bare patches in your garden as readily solvable problems. Ajuga, also known as bugleweed, black scallop, chocolate chip, and burgundy glow, spreads through a mechanism distinct from every other plant on this list. It doesn't rely on underground rhizomes or simple surface-rooting stems. Ajuga propagates via above-ground runners called stolons, horizontal stems that extend in all directions from the parent plant, rooting at each node along their length. This is the same mechanism that strawberries employ. If you've ever observed a strawberry plant colonizing bare soil, you have a precise illustration of how aggressively and quickly ajuga spreads. A single plant can cover several square feet in one growing season. Because these stolons root at every node, not just the tip, Each runner gives rise to 5, 6, or 7 new plants along its path. Each of these new plants then sends out its own runners. The coverage compounds upon itself at a rate that genuinely astonishes first-time growers. Black scallop features deep, glossy purple-black leaves that appear almost iridescent in certain lighting, lending an expensive and intentional aesthetic. Chocolate chip maintains a low profile, typically only 3 to 4 inches tall, with neatly textured leaves ideal for placement between stepping stones or along narrow border edges. Burgundy glow exhibits foliage in shades of green, white, and pink, offering a completely different visual effect from the other varieties. Here's the specific challenge that ajuga addresses more effectively than any other plant on this list: mature trees. We're referring to trees that have been established for 20, 30, or 40 years. The area beneath their canopy, characterized by dry soil, intense root competition, and deep shade, is where almost nothing thrives. Grass dies. Most perennials struggle and annuals barely survive. Even with annual replanting, this barren zone becomes one of the most frustrating spots in the entire garden. Ajuga is the solution, the singular fast-spreading perennial on this list that genuinely flourishes under these precise conditions. Thriving in partial to full shade, dry soil, and areas of root competition, planting ajuga beneath a mature tree this spring, allowing it one season to establish, will result in dense, weed-suppressing, colorful ground coverage by the following spring in a spot that has remained bare and problematic for years. The one mistake to avoid is straightforward. Do not plant ajuga directly adjacent to a lawn without a physical barrier between them. Ajuga does not differentiate between a garden bed and grass. If its stolons reach the edge of your lawn, they will root into it and spread throughout. Utilize metal or plastic edging, or plant ajuga in areas naturally bordered by hardscaping, such as a driveway, a pathway, or a building foundation, ensuring its spread remains precisely where you intend it. It is the only fast-spreading perennial capable of completely transforming a shaded dead zone beneath a mature tree into beautiful, weed-free, and colorful ground coverage within a single growing season. Now, let's consider plant number 8, bee balm. This plant features tall, upright stems reaching 2 to 4 feet in height, topped with shaggy, wild-looking flower heads in deep red, rich wine, or soft coral hues. Each flower head is comprised of dozens of individual tubular florets arranged in a crown, and surrounding these flower heads from morning until evening, every single day they are in bloom, are hummingbirds. This isn't an occasional sighting. It's a daily certainty. Jacob Klein is the deep red variety. Ruby-throated hummingbirds, the most common species across the eastern two-thirds of the United States, are drawn to it with an unparalleled intensity. Planting Jacob Klein near a window where you spend time will provide you with a front-row seat to hummingbird activity daily from July through September. Raspberry wine offers deep burgundy wine blooms, equally captivating to hummingbirds. Coral reef provides delicate coral hues that are ideal when you desire warmth without the intensity of red. The BB balm utilizes the same sophisticated dual spreading strategy as underground rhizomes, similar to black-eyed Susans, complemented by natural self-seeding above ground. A single specimen can mature into a colony spanning 2 to 3 feet in width by the close of summer. In the subsequent year, it expands further, scattering seeds that germinate beyond the reach of its rhizomes, resulting in more plants each season, increased ground cover, and free divisions without any direct intervention from the gardener. Herein lies the common pitfall that generates the most widespread complaints regarding BB balm within gardening circles across the nation. Powdery mildew. This affliction manifests as a chalky white coating on the foliage, typically appearing in midsummer, particularly prevalent in the humid climates of the Southeast, Midwest, and Mid-Atlantic regions. Its unsightly appearance prompts countless gardeners to remove BB balm annually, convinced it is not a worthwhile plant to cultivate. Unbeknownst to these disheartened gardeners, the prevalence of powdery mildew in BB balm is overwhelmingly a consequence of cultivar selection. The original, unselected species is highly susceptible to mildew under humid conditions. The variety known as Jacob's Ladder was specifically developed and bred for its superior mildew resistance. While not entirely immune, it can exhibit some signs of mildew late in an exceptionally humid season, with inadequate air circulation, but it demonstrates dramatically enhanced resistance compared to older cultivars. Therefore, selecting Jacob's Ladder is paramount. To ensure optimal air circulation, space plants a minimum of 18 to 24 inches apart. Water the base of the plant, avoiding overhead irrigation. Should mildew appear late in the season, prune the entire plant back to 6 inches. It will regenerate fresh, clean foliage within 2 to 3 weeks and frequently produce a second bloom cycle before the first frost. It stands as the most dependable plant for attracting hummingbirds in American horticulture, coupled with a spreading habit that reliably produces new plants each year without any effort on your part. This channel is dedicated to delivering authentic, specific, and experience-driven gardening advice each week, grounded in the realities of American growing conditions, actual climate zones, and the common mistakes made by gardeners. If you seek this level of practical guidance in your weekly feed, please subscribe immediately. Thousands of gardeners nationwide have already joined. Come, be a part of our community. Plant number 9, Creeping Jenny. Every plant featured thus far effectively fills garden space under reasonable light conditions. This next selection excels at filling space rapidly, even in environments that truly challenge all other ground cover spreaders on this list. Moreover, it introduces a garden color that is exceptionally difficult to achieve through other means at ground level. Creeping Jenny, specifically the golden variety, Lysimachia numularia aurea, forms a flowing, cascading carpet of small, rounded leaves in a rich, warm, golden green. It is not a true yellow, nor is it lime green. Rather, it possesses a deep, luminous gold that captures light in a way that appears almost backlit, even on overcast days. Now, envision this carpet flowing across bare soil, trailing over the edge of a container, cascading down a slope, filling the voids between stepping stones, or spreading beneath a shade tree, where very little else thrives. Creeping Jenny performs equally well in full sun, partial shade, and complete shade. Most rapid spreaders necessitate at least partial sun exposure. Creeping Jenny genuinely thrives irrespective of light conditions. In deep shade beneath a dense tree canopy, where even a hosta struggles, Creeping Jenny spreads reliably and maintains its color. Within a single growing season, one plant can expand several feet in every direction through continuous stem rooting, with each stem establishing new roots at every node as it travels, thereby creating new plants that subsequently extend their own stems. Herein lies the critical error that compromises Creeping Jenny's most prized characteristic: its distinctive golden hue. Most individuals plant it in full sun, as golden foliage typically appears most vibrant in sunlight. However, in full sun, particularly in zones 6 through 9, Creeping Jenny experiences heat stress by midsummer. The foliage transitions from a rich gold to a washed-out pale yellow. While the plant survives, the vibrant color that made it desirable is largely lost during the hottest months. Partial shade represents the optimal condition. Aim for 2 to 4 hours of direct sun, preferably in the morning. In partial shade, the gold coloration remains rich and saturated throughout the entire season. The plant experiences no heat stress and, in fact, spreads more vigorously as it is not diverting energy towards stress management. In zones 7 and 8, provide full shade during the peak heat of summer for the best color retention and most rapid spread. This offers the most effective method for introducing a rich, year-round gold color to shady, challenging ground-level areas where virtually nothing else will perform. Plant number 10. Shasta Daisy. All plants discussed thus far have primarily focused on ground coverage, horizontally filling bare soil. This next selection achieves that objective while also providing height, structural interest, and one of the most classically beautiful flowers in the American garden, blooming abundantly throughout the summer. Shasta daisy varieties, specifically Becky and Banana Cream. Becky grows to a height of 3 to 4 feet, producing flowers the size of your palm, measuring 3 to 4 inches in diameter. These blooms feature brilliant white petals surrounding a rich golden center. They flower from early summer through fall and are notably more heat-tolerant than older cultivars, making them the optimal Shasta daisy selection for gardens across the South and Mid-Atlantic regions. Banana Cream offers soft, creamy yellow flowers, a more subtle and sophisticated color that is excellent for settings where warmth is desired over bright intensity. Both varieties spread by forming expanding clumps and exhibit moderate self-seeding, gradually filling surrounding areas with new plants each season. Here is the primary mistake that leads to the premature decline of Shasta daisies, a concern particularly relevant for gardeners in zones 7 through 9. When planted in heavy clay soil with poor drainage, Shasta daisies rapidly deteriorate over the winter due to excessive moisture. The plant's crown cannot tolerate prolonged saturation in waterlogged soil. Crown rot is the leading cause of mortality for otherwise healthy plantings in warmer zones that experience significant winter rainfall. The solution is remarkably straightforward. Elevate the planting area by 4 inches. That is all that is required. A 4-inch increase in height significantly improves drainage away from the plant's crown. Construct a simple raised bed, mound the soil in the planting area, or incorporate several inches of coarse grit into the existing soil to enhance drainage capacity. Implementing this single adjustment will transform Shasta daisies that would have otherwise declined and perished into specimens that thrive and spread for many years. One additional detail that many gardeners overlook regarding Shasta daisies: cutting blooms for indoor arrangements does not diminish the garden display. Rather, it actively enhances it. Every stem you remove prompts the plant to produce additional stems. The more you cut, the more profusely it blooms. A single established Becky plant in midsummer can supply vases for every room in your house and still appear full and in bloom within the garden. This classic American garden daisy has been re-engineered for modern performance, providing abundant cut flowers throughout the summer, while steadily spreading to fill your garden borders without demanding excessive care. Plant number 11. Speedwell. Nearly all the rapidly spreading perennials on this list primarily extend horizontally, carpeting the ground, filling gaps at soil level, and establishing coverage across the horizontal plane. This functionality is immensely valuable. However, a garden consisting solely of horizontal elements can appear flat and lacking in design intent. This next plant effectively addresses this issue while spreading consistently, blooming for months, and requiring minimal attention. Speedwell, also known as Veronica, such as the royal candles and sunny border blue varieties. Instead of daisy-like flowers or low-spreading foliage, Speedwell produces tall, elegant, upright flower spikes, densely packed with tiny individual florets, arranged tightly along a vertical stem. Royal Candles reaches a height of 18 inches, displaying deep blue-purple spikes that possess an almost architectural precision. Sunny Border Blue grows to 12 to 15 inches, featuring rich violet-blue spikes that bloom slightly longer into the season. Within a garden bed populated by spreading ground covers and mounding perennials, Speedwell's vertical flower spikes create captivating focal points. They guide the eye upward, lending a more intentional and designed appearance to the entire planting. This vertical dimension is one of the specific techniques that distinguishes a professionally designed garden from one where plants are haphazardly arranged. Herein lies the mistake that often leads to disappointment with Speedwell, stemming from soil and site conditions rather than the plant itself. Speedwell planted in rich, heavily fertilized soil tends to become leggy. The stems grow taller than they can support, resulting in a leaning and sprawling appearance by midsummer, detracting from the clean, vertical structure that makes the plant desirable. Excessive shade contributes to the same problem as the plant stretches towards the light, compromising its upright habit. Lean soil and full sun represent the complete solution. If your Speedwell is flopping, evaluate these two conditions before considering other factors. Relocate it to a sunnier spot, or cease fertilizing the bed. Either change alone typically restores its upright form. Promptly deadhead spent flower spikes by cutting back to the next set of leaves, and Speedwell will produce secondary spikes later in the season, extending the bloom period into the fall. It stands as the only fast-spreading perennial on this list that contributes genuine vertical structure and architectural elegance to the garden, while requiring nothing more than lean soil and full sun. Plant number 12, Russian Sage. If you reside in the southern half of the United States, specifically in zones 7, 8, or 9, encompassing areas like Texas, the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, the Gulf Coast, California, and Arizona, this is the plant that warrants your closest attention. Many perennials that perform exceptionally well in the northern and central United States struggle in your heat. Your summers are extended, hotter, and more relentless than the conditions for which cooler climate plants were developed. Russian sage, however, was specifically adapted for your environmental conditions. Perovskia atriplicifolia, including the little spire and blue spire varieties, features tall, airy, upright stems adorned with small, silvery white leaves, crowned with lavender blue flower spikes that shimmer in the summer heat from July through September. The foliage is intensely aromatic, possessing a sharp, clean, sage-like scent that is completely unappealing to deer, rabbits, and most garden pests. In over a decade of cultivating Russian sage, I have never once observed deer damage on this plant, even in areas with significant deer populations. Blue spire reaches a height and width of 3 to 4 feet, offering a substantial presence suitable for use as a specimen, a backdrop for borders, or a mass planting for expansive areas. Little spire remains 18 to 24 inches tall, making it a better choice for smaller gardens or the midsection of a border. Here is the common mistake that leads to the demise of Russian sage, a pitfall that can even surprise experienced gardeners. Every autumn, gardeners who treat Russian sage as a conventional herbaceous perennial cut it all the way back to the ground. In zones 4 and 5, this practice can result in outright plant death. Russian sage possesses a woody base and a semi-shrubby crown that must remain intact throughout the winter. Cutting too low removes the protected growing points from which spring growth emerges. Unlike true herbaceous perennials, the plant cannot regenerate solely from below-ground roots. Leave 6 to 8 inches of woody stems standing throughout the winter. In early spring, wait until new growth is clearly visible emerging from the base before making any cuts. Trim the stems back to just above this new growth. In zones 6 through 9, where winters are milder, prune back by approximately 1/3 in early spring to shape the plant and encourage denser new growth. It requires full sun and extremely well-draining soil. Once established in zones 7 through 9, it needs virtually no supplemental irrigation. In poor, rocky, dry soil where other perennials falter, Russian sage thrives. Plant number 13. Karl Förster feather reed grass. Every plant on this list earns its place by effectively filling space, spreading reliably, and returning stronger each year. This final plant distinguishes itself for a different reason. It elevates the appearance of your entire garden, making it look as though it were designed by a professional. And I do not make this statement lightly. Landscape architects and professional garden designers specify Karl Förster feather reed grass on more planting plans than almost any other single perennial in the United States. As you drive past any well-designed public garden or any upscale residential planting from Seattle to Atlanta, you will encounter Karl Förster feather reed grass because it provides something that no flowering perennial can replicate: structure, movement, and four-season interest simultaneously. Here is how Karl Förster feather reed grass presents itself throughout the year. In spring, tight clumps of fresh green foliage emerge with clean, upright growth, making it one of the first ornamental grasses to exhibit movement after winter. By early summer, narrow, upright flower spikes rise above the foliage in feathery plumes that sway with every breath of wind, creating a constant, dynamic, living quality that static flowering perennials cannot match. By late summer, these plumes transform into a warm, golden wheat color. In fall, the entire plant shifts to a rich amber gold. And throughout winter, Karl Förster feather reed grass remains upright and structural, while nearly all other herbaceous plants have collapsed. It catches snow on its plumes, casts shadows across frost, and provides architectural form when other plants offer nothing. Spring, summer, fall, winter, 4 seasons, 1 plant. Here is the division mistake most individuals make, often driven by an eagerness to acquire more plants. Karl Förster feather reed grass does not require annual division. It does not even necessitate division every 2 or 3 years. The optimal timing for division is every 4 to 5 years, when the clump has achieved a substantial size and you have material genuinely worth dividing. Dividing too frequently impedes its development before it can reach its full visual impact. When you do divide, and this timing is non-negotiable, perform the division in early spring before new growth emerges. The root mass of Karl Förster feather reed grass is extraordinarily dense and robust. Do not use hand tools. Employ a sharp spade. Drive it straight down through the center of the clump with your full body weight and cleanly split the division away. Each division must be at least 1/3 of the original clump to re-establish quickly. Full sun promotes the most upright and structurally precise clumps. In deep shade, its performance declines. Provide it with adequate sun, and it will reward you with the most architecturally impressive presence of any plant in your garden. Here is the key takeaway from everything we have discussed today. A lush, beautiful garden that appears professionally designed is not something you must wait years to achieve. It does not require a substantial budget or the engagement of a landscape designer. It is something you build deliberately and intelligently within a single, well-planned planting season when you understand which plants to select, how they spread, the common mistakes to avoid, and the specific zone considerations that apply to your particular location. You now possess 13 such plants. You understand the spreading mechanism behind each one. You are aware of the specific mistake that most gardeners make with each plant. Mistakes that often cost gardeners years of performance and hundreds of dollars on plants that never reached their full potential. You know the detailed timing for each zone that differentiates a plant, that thrives from one that merely survives. This information represents a greater wealth of actionable, experience-based knowledge than most gardeners acquire through 5 years of trial and error in their own gardens. If this video has provided you with even one piece of information you were unaware of before clicking on it, one mistake you will now sidestep, one plant you will now consider trying, or one detail that genuinely alters your approach to your garden this season, then do yourself a favor right now. Subscribe to this channel. Consider this not a favor to me, but a commitment to yourself and to your garden. Every video on this channel is crafted with the same level of meticulous detail, the same zone-specific accuracy, and the same genuine respect for the time and effort you invest in your garden. You work diligently in your garden. You deserve information that matches that dedication. Subscribe immediately. Return next week, and let us continue to cultivate something you will genuinely feel proud of every time you step outside. One last thing before you depart. I request 2 answers from you in the comments section. First, out of these 13 plants, which one will you be planting first this season? Second, are you a gardener who meticulously clears everything in the fall for a tidy winter garden? Or do you intentionally leave structures and seed heads standing to provide sustenance and shelter for birds and wildlife throughout the winter? Please provide both answers below and include your USDA zone. I am eager to see which zones are most prominently represented within this community. I read every comment and respond to as many as possible. Your comment may very well serve as the inspiration for a future video. I look forward to seeing you in the next installment.